Mamaya yung kirtan pagkirakot. So, everybody okay? So we got a real, actually extremely important subject that we're going to be dealing with. That's also incredibly practical. It's not kind of some philosophical mental speculation kind of out there world. This is deals with the reality of your life. Whether you are on a committed spiritual journey or whether you are simply seeking to experience and live a better quality of life with a genuine opportunity, seeking a genuine opportunity for peace, to be peaceful. That's like, oh my God. I do sometimes Vedic marriages, being on the Hindu end of things, like a priest. And usually when I perform these things, my wishes for the couple is that they may come to find and be able to live a peaceful life. You can't always live a brilliantly happy life. That's possible when one makes more spiritual development or growth. But to be able to live a peaceful life is actually extraordinary, and it's rare. It's rare. So the topics that we're going to be exploring and the way in which we're dealing with things are going to deal with that. So one of the things that we do with Meditation New Zealand, I run a program at the maximum security prison in Auckland with all the boys out at Parry. Well, not all, a few of them. And we run like a 10-week course, which we roll over, which we call Freedom from the Inside. And that has profound meaning when we think of it in relation to our own life. People, because we're on the inside, as it were, looking out, we are terribly affected by our state of mind and our state of consciousness. Wherever we are in that realm, that's what pretty much rules our life. And the yoga process, all of the different schools of yoga, all of the spiritual paths had a foundational commonality, or a bunch of foundational commonalities. But this one was the need for us to be in control of our mind, rather than our mind being in control of us. So when I start this program, one of the first things I asked the guys when we're dealing with a new group, how many of you at some point in your life had a plan that on this particular day and time right now, that you were going to be locked up inside the maximum security prison? How many of you had that plan? That was a plan that you had. And of course, they burst out laughing because it's kind of, they realize that it's hilarious to think somebody would make a plan like that. So then, if this is not part of a plan that you had, how did you get here? How did you get here? What is it that drove you on this path? And if it's not your plan, it means you are not in control of your life. You are not in control of your decision making, because nobody in their right mind would make a decision to do something that would put them in this environment. That's just not, So it means the evidence is clear that you are clearly out of control. And that is a big problem. And I would like each of you to also consider that in relation to your own life. Did we consciously decide to be unhappy or to experience tremendous difficulty? And we'll often instantly say, no, I had another plan. Yeah, you might have had another so-called plan, but it actually wasn't a plan. It was just a wish. I had a wish to live happily ever after. It's like the wedding thing. Sorry if I bash this one a little bit. You have to excuse me. I'm totally politically incorrect and irreverent because I don't have time. Life is too short and it's too critical. People, they stage weddings. They make a plan for how the pictures are going to be. They make a plan for how the reception is going to run. They make a plan for things like the first dance and then what music will be playing. And then when we do this, people do this stuff. And then they take pictures of it as if it was spontaneous and display those and try and live that. Is this madness or what? This sounds like selfie world, where everything is so staged. Look at me, I'm so excited. No, again, I'm so excited. Yeah, that's better. I'm so excited. That's BS big time. Get over it. You're faking it. You're faking it. If you want to find happiness, if you want to find peacefulness, you got to think about things a little bit more seriously than being caught up in things. So, I mean, going back to the wedding thing, everybody has the hope. Even the older ladies who are totally into the bridesmaids and the bride and what they're wearing and what's going on, and they're all on board and just like, and their marriage is completely crap itself. or at least a big part of it is crap, and it's kind of like, how did I get it? And they're just hoping that this one is going to be the fantasy that everyone wants to live happily ever after. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. And just because you've got the pictures and you keep looking at it and saying, I was so happy then and everything was so nice then, nobody makes a plan to get divorced. When they meet someone and they're all excited and the heart's beating and this is it. Nobody makes a plan for it to crash and burn. But the majority of them crash and burn. Majority can be half plus one. 50% plus one gives you majority. And I know it's more than 50% of marriages end in misfortune and unhappiness and divorce. Did you plan for that? And the answer is no. Then how did it happen? How did it happen? What does it mean? To have a wish and to have a plan is not the same thing. That's two. One of them's fantasy. I got a wish, I hope. A plan is, okay, if I want to do this, if I want to scale Mount Everest, then what kind of preparation do I need? What physical conditioning, what skill set do I need? Who's going to be my team? What's it going to cost? How much in advance do I have to apply for permits with the Nepalese government? How am I going to get all the gear over there, and what's that going to cost? This is called making a plan. And who's going to be with us on the final ascent? What members of the team are going to be behind and some of the other staged camps? Who are we going to hire as guides? Who is going to come with us, and who is going to be, when we plan everything out, on that final ascent to summit Mount Everest? That is a plan, where you actually work out the details, you think about it. That's a plan. Lying in your batch and thinking, oh, I'd love to be able to climb Mount Everest. That'd be so cool. Yeah, let's go on Facebook and announce it. I'm going to do this. And that's going to make it true. That's going to make it happen. No, there has to be a plan. And unfortunately, the vast majority of people, we have become overly conditioned by the whole consumer experience. Consumer economics, I think, is a tragedy for the world. And social media, which is amplifying the messaging of consumer economics, is an absolute disaster for people's sanity and peacefulness and the chance of living really prosperous life. Prospering, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about in the field of happiness and peace. How much money you have when you are lying on your deathbed is irrelevant. Because I tell you what, it's just so much more anxiety. You're lying there and then you're thinking, oh shit, should I be leaving it to this one? Or have I split it up fine? Or have I, God, if I leave it to my son, that second one, he's such a dick. He's just going to spend it all on drugs. Oh shit, what am I going to do? How am I going to safeguard this? I need to call the lawyers. And you're lying there meant to be focusing on this time of leaving the body. This is an incredible experience, and doing it in a thoughtful and a conscious way that produces amazing outcome. And instead, I'm caught up with my anchors, the things that are anchoring me to this experience and this particular life journey that I'm on. And I'm caught up with all the anchors and all this stuff. And I'm just going to have to leave it all anyway. And what a bummer that is. That is the ultimate bummer. If we want to make conscious decisions and choices that actually lead to the best possible outcomes in our life, you've got to actually get beyond wishful thinking. You can wish all of the butterflies and rainbows and unicorns that you want. That doesn't mean they're going to show up. Oh, yeah, but I want to be so positive about it. Well, being positive and dreaming are not the same thing, and people often confuse them. I'm having a fantasy and I'm calling it positive thinking. No, you are heading on a route that will bring you unhappiness, and you're calling it positive thinking. You've got to get beyond the wishful thinking and get down to the real brass tacks about how am I going to live? How am I going to make really good choices? Because I tell you what, every single choice that you make, every single action that you take has an inescapable consequence. Getting back to the weddings. People fantasize about how wonderful their life is going to be. And then they say that they want to be positive about it and wish for good outcomes and everything. But they begin to engage in patterns of activity within their relationships and their life choices, and they take actions that can never produce happiness, can never produce peace, and will always produce unhappiness. How smart is that? That's not smart at all. Can we figure that one out? Usually not. Why can't we? Because we're so wrapped up in our mind and everything that's going on there and all the emotions. We never step back, hit the pause button, and think about it. Should I just be following this? Should I just be going along with this? How should I be reacting to this? How should I react to this person and what was said or done? What's going to be in my best interest? My false ego, my pride, and all those kind of things which are connected intimately with the mind, just catering to that produces crappy outcomes. So people may have wished for a life that would be happily ever after, but they began to choose courses of action and to make decisions that cannot lead anywhere else other than to unhappiness. And we are not taught how to exercise restraint. Because one of the big things that you need in life, if you are going to find happiness or peace, you have to exercise restraint over everything. You cannot live a big, bold, loud, and brash life and expect it will produce fantastic outcomes. You may have 1 million followers on YouTube rooting for you, like one of the guys in Jackass, just because you snorted wasabi. What the hell are you doing? Don't you know what that's going to do to you? And you think that snorting wasabi and having 2 million people screaming like, more, do some more, that's going to get you anywhere in life? That it's going to produce fulfillment? No, you have just amped up this course that you are on that cannot end anywhere other than unhappiness. How are we doing with this? Was this a bit too serious after your yoga? Sorry, guys. You know, I some people get really offended by the way I talk, and I'm sorry. I don't have the intention of offending. But I tell you what, unless you wake up, unless you get a grip, unless you start making really good choices and you get into a situation where you're exercising more control of your mind and emotions, I'm sorry, you're going to be unhappy. And that breaks my heart to see people unnecessarily make choices and follow directions in life that just lead to major unhappiness and affect so many other people in so many different ways. Are we cool with this? Huh? Anybody spazzing out or getting upset or anything? Okay, that's the introduction.
What about the inverse?
Huh?
You talked about how to be unhappy.
Yeah, how do you become happy? Well, this is really where we're going with everything. So one of we live in a fully materialistic society. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about New Zealand, I'm talking about humanity at large, are utterly immersed in the most profound forms of materialism. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Mostly, if you ask people say, oh, I'm going to live a more spiritual life. I want to live a more spiritual existence, and they talk about things like that. But they don't have any idea what it means to be spiritual. Nor do people have a clear understanding of what materialism is. They think it's just people that always want to collect objects and buy new stuff and have new experience. That's materialistic. The foundation of materialism is the idea that I am material. That video that we watched last night, if you actually think about it, and if you were really testing it as you go, and really some of the ideas that were presented, it is a practical and scientific reality that the body that you have on is not you. It is constantly changing. What was the period of time? In one day, 98% of all the atomic particles in the body are replaced. Within 5 years, every single atomic particle in your body has been completely replaced. And yet you remain the same person. You remain the same entity who's experiencing this journey that we're calling life. I think that's pretty far out. That's like really, really profound. Because in our head, we are fully convinced that the body that we have on is who I am. That this is my identity. That my path to happiness is going to be to stimulate this thing. And the more pleasing experiences it can have, the happier I will become. This is the foundation of materialism and the philosophy that flows from it. Spirituality is founded on a deep understanding that I am an eternal spiritual being temporarily residing in this body. Because of my presence in this body, my body demonstrates all the symptoms of life. It appears to be completely alive. But as soon as I leave, that body instantly shows its real self. And that ain't a pretty sight. Or what? It's not a pretty sight. And it's just like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. Do I have to think about this? Well, that's your choice. You can choose to live in a dream and hope everything will turn out in the end. But inevitably, in living in that dream, you will be consistently making choices and engaging in actions that lead to bad outcomes and unhappiness for you. How does this sound to you guys? I'm not talking about the guys that have been around for a bit. I mean, just generally, how does this sound? Does this seem hopeful, or is it just kind of like, huh? Truthful. That sounds like painful. It is truthful. But what I would like as much as possible, and what my hope is that you will come to see this as a message of hope. It is possible to come to a state of complete happiness. It is possible to experience true peacefulness in spite of what's going on. I mean, you think you got problems now. You can't imagine where this is all going. You know, in a few months, I'm going to be 70 years old, my body. And it's just like, oh my God. That's just like, whoa. And I know from that point onwards, if I get to continue to reside in this vehicle for some time, it's going to turn into a total crap out. It gets really bad. I mean, you start off this journey in this little body that you have no control over, and you're just shitting and pissing everywhere and vomiting and whatever. And somebody has to take care of you. Hey, and that's where the journey goes. But because you've had all this experience in between, and you had so many people depending on you, and you were so strong, and you could make all the decisions, and you led the way, and now you're in diapers. You can't imagine how crushing that is. And nobody really wants to hang around with you anymore. You're smelly, old. You know, your skin's all peeling off, and your hair's all gone, and your teeth have fallen out, and you smell really bad. And it's just like, you know, people come and bring you flowers and talk to you for a little bit, trying to remember all the old stuff that happened. You remember the time when we did this? And show pictures. And then they go. And then you're just there, waiting for the inevitable exit. And it's not glorious like Elvis has left the building. Nobody's like, oh, yeah. Sorry, this is probably a bit brutal, but even going through the natural processes that are part of having a material body, it does not have to be unhappy, and it doesn't have to be a tragedy. A person, even in the most advanced state of deterioration, can be experiencing a world of ecstatic blissfulness and happiness, be fully at peace, be utterly without anxiety and care. That is the state. It's not tied to where you are on that spectrum in terms of your body's growth and diminishing. It's tied to something else, and that's going back to this program that I mentioned that we're doing in prison, freedom from the inside. And the principal component, or the two main things that we have to come to learn to appreciate and to see the reality of. I am an eternal spiritual being. This body is not me. And the second one is I have to fundamentally be the one in charge here. I have to be driving the bus. If I'm sitting in the back of the bus and my mind is driving, you are in for a rocky ride. It just doesn't work out good. In the Bhagavad-gita, there are a couple of verses I will read. One must deliver themselves with the help of the mind and not degrade themselves. And in brackets, that would be with the help of the mind. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and their enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, their mind will remain the greatest enemy. What? I'll read that one again. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. No greater enemy. Your ex-wife or ex-husband is nothing in comparison to your own mind. How's that? Is that extraordinary or what? Is this too sober? Or we're okay or what? Okay. I'm a little worried I'll finish speaking and everybody will start throwing chairs at me and stuff. You've wrecked my life. Just pillows, okay. Mindfulness. The most crucial element, the foundation for real mindfulness, is the appreciation and the understanding that I am this eternal spiritual being. I am the perceiver, and I am different than my mind. You know, they brushed or touched briefly on the topic of perception. There were some scientists talking about it. We're not very thoughtful about stuff. And let's just examine this idea of perception, how it takes place and how it occurs. We do so much kind of like we're just doing stuff and we're acting and we're doing things and we're taking so many things that we think are absolutely true, absolutely rock solid truth, and they're not. Absolutely not. In the world of quantum physics, sorry guys, in the world of quantum physics, they really explore the question, people that are in this field, of perception and everything. And it's mind-blowing for the scientists that study these things. When we see something, just like was on the TV program that we watched, how does seeing take place and who is seeing? Before we go there, in the Ashtanga yoga process that was taught by Patanjali, and this has nothing to do with what people call Ashtanga yoga now. We're talking about the real Ashtanga yoga process. They would often use a term in Sanskrit, drishta. Drishta, it means the seer. The seer. They would refer to the seer. And what does that mean? Well, let's look at this. Let's look at something here. Okay, let's look at the drum kit. You can look at it, or maybe there's too much going on there. I don't know. Pick one part of it. The fan over there, just the top of the fan. You can look at that, and some people can do it easily, others more difficult. If you close your eyes, you can still visualize its presence. And what you are seeing is an image that has been imprinted upon the mind. You can do it with any object. And this was actually something that people did in the early part of yoga practices to try and gain, through a process that was called dharana, to bring the mind into a single focus. But what's really going on there? You ask people, so are you able to see that? And they go, yeah. So how are you able to see it? Because I've got eyes, stupid. Okay, well, let's blindfold you and put you in a room in the dark and tell me what you can see. I can't see anything. Do you still have eyes? Yeah. You said that if you've got eyes, your eyes are your instruments for seeing. Your eyes don't actually see anything. These are pathways. They're just like, you've got a lens, you've got this gelatinous ball. Have you ever seen an eyeball outside of an eye socket? I remember when I was a kid, I went to college in Te Aroha, and one of the guys got whacked on the side of the head with a cricket ball, and his eye came out. That's mind-blowing. Doesn't matter how much you gazed into that person's eyes. Oh, your eyes are so beautiful. If it pops out on your cheek, it ain't beautiful anymore. Sorry, this is going to be a little bit of a diversion. It's just like we live in this altered state of, unreality. Oh, your hair is so beautiful. Yeah. You go take a shower in somebody's house and the water starts creeping up around your feet. And it's like, oh my God, it's blocked. And I'm going to have to bend over and take all that hairball out of the shower drain. How's that experience? That's like disgusting. This is like cockroach, kind of, picking up a cockroach or picking up a hairball in the shower. It's kind of like on the same level, huh? It's kind of like, but when it's attached to your head, oh, it's so beautiful and it moves me. I love it. As soon as it falls off your head, it's disgusting. Ew, there's hair in my soup. And we don't put these things together because we gravitate towards the fantasy. There is a reality behind it that's like really different. Back to the eyeball. So you've got, light. The reason that you can see something, a big part of it is because there has to be light. Light hits something and it comes into the eyeball and it passes through the lens, which is just like this amazing thing that's constantly moving, focusing and changing focus. And it's just like this incredible machine. It goes through into the back of the eyeball, and then the light hits photosensitive cells. No pictures. There's no picture in your eyeball. Zero. No picture. There's just light hitting photosensitive cells. And then the photosensitive cells send off electrical impulses. And different cells are sending off different impulses. And that all travels down the optic nerve to the back of your head and into the visual cortex of the brain. And when that electrical impulse gets there, it just fires off all of this electrical stuff in your brain. Where's the picture? Where's the picture? Where is it? And who's looking at it? It's not my eye. That's a far out idea. The things that we take for granted, the things that we're just totally immersed in, it's really amazing. So you've got all this electrical stuff firing off in your brain. Where's the picture and who's looking at it? Well, this is a reference to the seer, that there is an inner inhabitant of the body that gets to see all these things as they are projected onto the mind. Big subject. And we're not going to go down that path, don't worry. It's already probably spazzing you out, or no. The yogis, the hardcore yogis that would live alone quite often, not necessarily, some of them would move around and be great spiritual teachers. They see everything different than common people see. When they look and they see people, they don't just see bodies, they see spiritual beings residing within the bodies. They can easily perceive different states of consciousness. They can see when a person reacts to something and says something or behaves in a way. They see the process and they see what's going on and they see the outcome. When they walk around, it's like, whoa. It's not like, somebody's a stoner down the street, just, puffing away or shooting something up. Yeah, man. or sitting around just getting loaded with alcohol and feeling the buzz and playing the music. Boom, 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 yeah. I mean, New Year's Day. Oh my God, what's this New Year thing? This insanity where everybody gets out at night like it's different than any other day, and then they're going to actually do a countdown. You know, and then they get 5, 4, 3. Yeah. What exactly is exciting you here? There's nothing happening. It's just, some fantasy that you've created in your mind. And then, of course, you're faced with a disappointment. You go home, you might be slightly hungover, and you try to keep saying that you had such a wonderful time. But inside, you're feeling like, shit, what was that all about? It hasn't made any difference in my life. Nothing's changed. None of my problems have gone away. If anything, things may have become worse. These practical things are what we are going to be dealing with in this subject. There's huge ramifications to the stuff that we're talking about, and I've kind of ventured out into some of those places just to try and give you a sense that, oh my God, there's a lot going on here. We will reduce it back down to real simple stuff. Don't worry, we're not going to keep going down this road. Most people's heads will explode. We will deal with things in a practical and simple way. Does anybody have any questions? I was going to stop now, and we were going to have a little bit of a chant before we break off. But if you had any questions now, and once again, I just want to reiterate, there are no such thing as dumb questions. And if you have something that you want to try and get a grip on and try to understand better, then asking questions is good. And you'll find many people are thinking exactly the same things. Our challenge is always going to be this. We sit there within this body covered by the mind. We have two bodies, a gross physical body, and then there is what's called a subtle body, the linga stula. It is or linga sarira. It is the subtle body is comprised of what's called the mind and the buddhi, or intelligence, and the false conception of the self, the ahankara. And the living being is surrounded by these things, and this covering serves as like a filter. If I put red cellophane on all of the windows and all of the light sources, everything in here will become tinged with a red hue. And if you come into a room that you've never been in before, and you have a particular color that's tinging everything, and you try to figure out what color the carpet is and what color, different objects are. If you see wood grain, you know that that's probably brown. That's, from association. But you can't actually figure out what all the colors are. Anybody that's done color separation work, knows what this is about. You can't figure out what the color is. This is our situation. We have these filters on. It's called material conditioning. And we process things. We observe things. That's all passing through the filter. The process of yoga, particularly of meditation, is a process by which the filters are removed, where you see with great clarity. And the main thing that you're going to see is your own spiritual identity, who you actually are. And there'll be tremendous clarity and joyfulness that comes with this, and freedom from fears and anxieties. So starting this evening, we're not going to talk for very long in the evening because might be a bit, it's better that we do more chanting. But over the next, this evening and tomorrow and Monday morning, let's get down into some of the real practical things that you can begin to add to your life, which will make it so that you're practically engaging in a more mindful life that will produce better outcomes and more happiness. Okay, any question? Yeah.
I can't remember the exact words you used, but you said something about to be happy you need to exercise restraint and control when you make decisions. So when you make a decision, you usually know kind of what the better decision is and what the maybe not so wise choice is. Like you might know that very well.
Yeah.
Like deep down inside, you
Yeah.
know, but you sort of ignore that feeling. How do you give strength to the part that you kind
Yeah.
of know is right deep down? How do you make that response?
Good question. Will you be here later?
Yeah.
Okay. In which case, I'm not going to answer that now because it will be part of what we deal with. Really learning how to make good choices. And there are kind of like some guiding principles that we need to develop some trust in, ancient wisdom that will really guide us through this growth and through this process. So we do need some sort of benchmarks where we know if I go on this side of that, in all likelihood, it's not going to be a good outcome. On this side is meant to produce better outcome. I need to figure out why, and I need to experience why. But it's kind of like there are guiding principles, and but I will be getting into those practical sort of things as we. Is that okay? You don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
In relation to last night's question.
What's that?
So, lady, what's your name again, sorry?
Caroline.
At the back. You asked a question. Yeah, no, I'm just talking about in relation about being self-conscious or concerned about what people think of us. And I know for some people this is not in my case, unfortunately, it's a very difficult thing to deal with. And why does it have so much power over us, something like that, to the point where sometimes you really just can't do anything about the fact that you feel really shy or really self-conscious or worried about what other people think about you. It's kind of like it's really traps people.
Trap is a really heavy word.
Yeah.
I would have used it too. It's true. It's true. I am planning to. It may not be completely obvious right now. What I'm trying to do is lay down some sort of like foundational stuff and build on it. And that is a subject that I will deal with. But I wanted to just get some foundational understanding down. Sometimes, we use common words, but when I use a particular word, it may mean something a little bit different to me than perhaps it means to you. And so, like, for instance, to be self-conscious. No, I'm not going to go there. That's going to be a mind spinner, that one. I mean, it's a question of who is the self? Am I being conscious about my body and how it appears and my mental state and how that appears, but that's not really you. That's not the actual self. That's bodily consciousness and mind consciousness and how that appears to others. And so that's a kind of like a really big subject, and I don't want to deal with it just in passing, and that's why we're kind of laying some foundational stuff. So when we talk about it, we're using kind of like a common language, and we have a common understanding of these things. I mean, this may seem irrelevant, but it actually is important. The first time I lived for some time in India as a monk. My training, went to India when I was 20, and this spaced out dorky Kiwi guy from Te Aroha, it was just like, oh my God, this is like being on another planet and a whole different world of experience. And after being there for some time, we were doing something, and I was invited, along with a couple of other monks, to go to some person's house and to have kirtan with them, which, no problem, we did it. And then they asked us to speak to them some spiritual truth. And it completely blew my mind, being asked to do that, because there were a lot of things that I was still unsure about. And I found, during this period of my life, that the transition from being overly self-conscious, particularly being in front of others, it begins to move with to the degree that you are not focusing on yourself. And I'm using this just as an example. So when I first started trying to speak, I had a lot to share. I had received so much knowledge from my spiritual teachers that I had full faith in was valid and important. But when I try to sit in front of others and speak, I become like, I have difficulty speaking. And I'm sometimes thinking about how I might appear and how things might be coming across. But over time, what happens is when I sit here and speak to you, I don't have any thought about what I look like and what I might sound like. And it doesn't matter whether I'm talking to one person or 1,000 people or 5,000 people. I have been trained and come to be more concerned for the people I'm speaking to than my so-called self. And in that situation, I'm just thinking about how can I best relay this message? Internally, there's a prayer process that please make my power of speaking suitable for the audience that I'm addressing. Please help me to present things in a way that perhaps people will come to understand. And so the focus becomes, on people that I'm trying to deal with and help. And I don't have a single thought about how do I look and, what you might think of me is irrelevant. It doesn't move me. What my spiritual teachers think about what I'm saying. If I am misleading somebody, if I am saying something that is harmful, if I'm saying something that is wrong, and I know that would be very displeasing, to me that's devastating. But if somebody doesn't agree with me, then I usually apologize. Well, I'm sorry that, I haven't been able to present things in a way that you can understand and appreciate. I know that what I'm saying is the truth, but, I'm sorry. What can I say? It's my own defects. It's my own shortcomings. The more your life develops a clear and important spiritual purpose, the easier time you will have with everything else. I can absolutely promise that. This self-consciousness that we struggle with and everything, it's all just part of this whole jumble of where I assume that whatever's going on in my mind is important and I should listen to it and I should follow it. I mean, one of the things that we are going to be dealing with, and that's why I was planning to deal with this later, when we talk to the guys in prison, and for instance, with anger, one of the principles I try to really help them understand, in a state of heightened emotions, whether it's positive or negative, but more so negative, don't speak. Don't make a decision. Don't act. Step back. Step away if you must. Do what you need to do to calm down. And when you are on an even keel and not being overly influenced, and you feel it, like when you feel emotional responses, your heartbeat goes up, the way you change, there's physiological changes in your body, your breathing patterns, the way that, different things are released into the body, the way it affects the brain, it just brings all this change. When you step away from everything and really calm down, and then begin to question, what is the best way to deal with this? What's in my long-term interest? What is in their long-term interest? What will actually move us forward? When you start practicing these kind of things, it brings about a big change to your experience and your degree of so-called self-consciousness, and it just affects so many different things. But we'll get to that in the next 2 days. We got plenty of time. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much. I hope it wasn't an overload. No, it's all right, or what? Haribol. Yeah. We'll sing on.